I say it's just take the first step. I think a lot of times, like when we are going after something, it seems so insurmountable, right? Like there's a huge mountain ahead of you, and you look at the top, you're like, I'm not sure how I can get there. Like it seems very daunting. But if you take one step, like you're one step closer to the top of that.
Hello, everyone. I am Melissa Forziat of Take the Doughnut, here to help you get inspiration and get donuts. I'm a motivational keynote speaker, and today I'm bringing you a really fun Take the Doughnut interview with Timothy Kuryak, who is an Emmy-nominated television executive who's developed, produced, and overseen thousands of hours of programming for both broadcast and cable networks, including hits like Who Do You Think You Are, What Not to Wear, Say Yes to the Dress, Beauty and the Geek, Joe Millionaire, and The Simple Life. In addition to his work behind the scenes as an executive, Timothy is also an accomplished screenwriter with 4 produced TV movies to his name, and is most recent named by Variety as one of the top 25 Hallmark Christmas movies of all time. Welcome, Timothy. It's so good to talk with you.
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And I mean, I didn't say it in that bio, but we're both Brown grads, so that's how we are connecting here. And I'm
Yes.
happy to have that connection today. So I'm looking forward to getting into all the questions with you. But first, I have to ask, what's your favorite donut?
Okay, so that's a complicated question only because I have favorite donuts at different locations. So if it's like a Krispy Kreme, I just want the plain glaze, right? If it's Dunkin' Donuts, I want the chocolate frosted with sprinkles. And then my current sort of favorite donut is almost anything from Sidecar Donuts, which is sort of a boutique donut shop here in Southern California that I love. So I love donuts in general, but those are some of my favorites.
I love it. And you have a whole selection you can get. You
Yeah.
have different favorites depending on where you are. You're a man after my own heart. This is so good. I said just a little bit about you to get us started, but tell us more about yourself. What should we know about you?
That's such a tough question. I know I've
Yeah.
had kind of a varied background, and I know that when I really started off in this world, I was a Brown grad, as you mentioned, and I thought I'd always go to law school. I was accepted to a graduate program in London, and I had done a internship with a Broadway producer in the years between my Brown, undergrad years, and just sort of figured I'd take a stab at entertainment, and if it didn't work out, I could always go back to law school. So, started off on Broadway and then worked my way to Los Angeles and into television. And sort of here I am now, still trying to figure out what I want to do with my life.
Isn't that the funny thing? I think, especially like given that we have this college connection, I feel like that's such a big question that comes up in college. What am I going to do with my life or at that time in your life? And it's like we're constantly answering that. So it's really unfair that it feels like it needs to have this big, broad answer when you're young. Like,
Mm,
still working that out.
exactly. And I think like even when I talk to people, they feel like everyone always says I have such a varied career and sort of like both theater and film and television, writing and being an executive. But I think I just like being challenged and trying new things. So I always like to keep it varied.
It's wonderful too, because I think you begin to realize that your skills are very transferable. And I think sometimes when you think that you're pigeonholed in one world, you end up being pigeonholed in that world. So it's a really interesting story for all of us that like you actually maybe can try to branch out and see where else your skills can apply. Well, for those who are wondering why donuts have come up so many times in this conversation so far, let me just reset this for folks who haven't heard about Take the Doughnut. So for me, Take the Doughnut is another way to say carpe diem. It's all about going after the things that you want in life. And it started with the thing that happened to me at Brown, where I left an actual donut on a table, but it became almost instantly an object lesson in what it looks like to leave opportunities behind. So I don't want to do that anymore. I want to take the donut. So I'll link a video here for those who haven't seen that origin story before. But basically, this conversation is all about going after the things that you want in life, goals, dreams, whatever. And what does that really look like when we do it, practically speaking? So for you, Timothy, how are you with going after goals? What is that process like for you?
I would say it's changed over the years that, I think a lot of times I would like to think that I kind of fell into things, but as I really look back and study it, I was probably actively pursuing things, but not really putting it in that frame of mind of carpe diem, take the donut, so to speak. Even with the internship that got me into this crazy world of entertainment, I had heard about it at lunch at the Ratty, which is the dorm dining room at Brown. This guy that I had just met, he's like, "Oh, yeah, I did this internship last summer. It pays," which back then internships never paid. So I'm like, "Oh, that sounds really interesting." And I had seen one or two plays on Broadway maybe in my life. So I wasn't even really interested in theater, but at the time I was like, "Hey, a paid internship, that sounds great." And he got me in touch with the woman that did the interviews, and I was up against five kids from the Yale School of Drama. And, I just thought to myself, like, hey, this seems like a great opportunity. I'd like to do it. I don't have any sort of ego. I had no sort of thoughts of going into the world of theater. But, I got hired, and that's sort of what began this journey. So, to me, I sort of thought I kind of fell into it, but, I did sort of actively pursue it and really was sort of going after it. So, to me, nowadays, it is more about sort of being more mindful and I think asking for things. I think in my past, I've been very hesitant to sort of reach out or ask for help or ask for guidance or, sort of look for someone to help me along my path. And I'm much better at that today. I'm still trying, I'm still working on it, but, I think you do have to be more active and try to really go after what you want.
Yeah. This is such a good lesson for us all. So, when you have something really big that you're going after, and you certainly have tackled, at least professionally, some really big projects in your life, sometimes it takes a while to get there. And I'm curious what keeps you motivated if you know it's going to be a while or it's going to, be a lot of networking or skill building. How do you keep that motivation up?
I don't know, and I'm kind of struggling with that right now, to be honest, because, especially now I'm sort of transitioning a little bit. I still do work in television on the production side in nonfiction, but a lot of my recent success has been in sort of screenwriting and writing. And so that can be a lot lengthier process. And in this time right now when the television and sort of entertainment world is going through sort of a dramatic change, there's been a lot of layoffs, there's been a lot of consolidation. It really is taking more time to find that next thing. So I think what keeps me motivated is just, you know, I find things that I'm interested in and that stories I would like to tell that sort of get me interested and motivated. And I think that helps me sort of like push it down the line. So for instance, like I'd come up with this idea for a movie probably 15 years ago, and it's always been in the back of my mind. And I've written various versions of it. But recently I sort of signed with a new manager, and that was the one movie he's like, I think this is the one we should go after. I think this is the one that is the most sellable right now. And so, I think it's one of those things of just keeping to your guns and sort of sticking to what you believe in and really feel like you have passion for is what helped keep me motivated.
And it's an evolving journey, it sounds like, for you as well.
It is, yes.
Well, when you think about, going after the things you want, a lot of times when we do that, obstacles come in our way. Something gets in the way that slows things down for us. And I'm curious for you if there's a particular brand of challenge that just keeps coming up, no matter what it is you're targeting, what you're going
Mhm.
for, you're always going to come up against this Achilles heel. What is it?
Well, I'm getting better at it, but I think on some level my Achilles heel is being too nice. And I know that may sound negative, but I think it's more about standing up for myself. I think there are sometimes challenges in this business where, you can get cut out of a deal or there's a disagreement or something. And a lot of times I feel like I have a tendency to kind of just be the nice guy and like, oh, I don't want to make any waves. Like, I just want this to, be resolved. But I've learned in the past couple of years that like really sort of sticking up for myself and standing up for myself is something that is better for me, and that's it's something that keeps me motivated. That it's better to sort of fight for what you believe in and not regret something than sort of rolling over and then kicking yourself later.
I've had a journey with that as well.
Yeah.
in my adulthood. I think it sounds so easy to do on paper, and then when confronted with the situation, it can be challenging.
Yeah, exactly. I know, and it's funny because I'm generally a very easygoing guy. I smile a lot. I'm very friendly, and I think on some level it takes people back when you actually begin to sort of stand up for yourself because it's like, oh, wait a second, I thought you were just going to be the guy that was sort of nice and would sort of roll over and sort of let us do what we want, but when you actually do stand up for yourself, people take notice.
They do. Well, so if you think back on your life, and this could be a personal or a professional answer, whatever comes up for you, what would you say is the biggest donut you've ever taken? Biggest thing you've said yes to, biggest opportunity? What comes up for you?
I think sort of this transition from, sort of being an executive to being a writer. I was working at a network and my boss, she was busy running the network, but she's like, I can't have, I don't really have time to sort of read scripts and watch cuts. Is that something you could help me with? And at the time, I had really best been doing nonfiction stuff. So reading scripts and watching cuts of movies was new to me. And in a very sort of, I guess, somewhat egotistical way, when I started reading through these things, I was like, I think I could do this. And I mentioned that to her, and she's like, well, hey, if you want to take a stab at it, feel free. She's like, I'm not going to pay you to do it. I can't guarantee that, if you write something, I'll like it or put it into production, but if you want to try it, go right ahead. And, I think for the longest time, I had always thought of myself as being someone that helps shepherd projects. Like I could give notes on something. If you presented me, a script or an idea or something, I could help you shape it. But I never thought I could do that myself. And so, maybe her giving me that sort of allowance to sort of do that, I thought to myself, well, let me challenge myself. Let me see if I can actually do this. And so, I went away for 2 weeks and wrote a first draft of a script. And, luckily it was something that was somewhat, producible and she liked it. And that started my sort of screenwriting career.
Wow. I mean, what an interesting way to add a new dimension to what you do. And, you had been so close to it from one side, so it probably was giving you skills the whole way along.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because if you look at the world of nonfiction, a lot of times, like if you're shooting a reality show, like you get what you get, right? You capture it. And in the edit bay, you have to kind of figure out, okay, how do I tell this story with what I have? When as a screenwriter, it's like you're actually structuring a story and you can sort of create situations, you can solve problems that way, so I didn't know it at the time, but yes, all of that nonfiction work I was doing was helping me understand how to tell a story. And so that actually translated quite well into writing.
Beautifully said. Well, what's a donut that you're taking right now in any aspect of your life that you can talk about?
Oh, there's a couple. The movies that I've written thus far have all been sort of Christmas movies. I'm one of those people where it's, I look at what the marketplace is looking for. And so they want, at the time I started writing, it's like everyone wanted a Christmas movie. So I'm like, well, let me try to write a Christmas movie. That seems to be the most advantageous area. And unfortunately, like I sort of got stuck into a rut of like, everyone's like, oh, you're the Christmas guy. So, that's one of those things where I enjoy writing Christmas movies. I think they're really fun. They obviously have a very loyal audience, but at the same time, I don't want to just write Christmas movies. And so I'm trying to write a horror movie right now because it's, that's another one of those genres that people are always looking for stuff in. And I've had a couple ideas that seem to resonate with people. And then also in the same way that before I thought like, oh, I could never write a movie, I always thought like, well, I could never write a novel. And so I'm actually now trying my hand at writing a novel.
Wow, look at all these things. And hey, if you ever have like a horror movie that you need to test in front of an audience, I'm one of your people, okay? Just so you know.
Good to know.
Actually, I don't know. I don't know if you want people who really know the genre or people who don't when you test a horror movie, because I think they watch it very differently.
No, no, I think on some level, like we all should be interested in, people that do love horror movies and people that don't love horror movies. Like, for instance, like in the nonfiction world, like I've never watched a single episode of The Kardashians, right? It's not what I like. It's not for me. but I am fascinated by the people that do like it. And as a student of this, sort of industry, you have to understand what the audience likes about something or why they watch something. So to me, doing that kind of research is invaluable and sort of, that's why they have focus groups and focus testing to sort of see, okay, what are the people that are the perceived audience for this? What do they think about it? And how can I tailor it to make sure that they'll want to see it when it comes out?
It's so interesting. Yeah, it would be hard to do that with horror movies. Like, there's no one movie that everybody can agree on in that community. So it's sort of like the closer you get to a fandom, the scarier it gets. Uh, so, but okay, so there may be people who are watching this right now who have a donut of their own they want to take, and it could just still be an idea for them that they're thinking about, or it could be something that they've started moving towards and they're looking for some motivation to get there. So let's sprinkle some encouragement. And what would you say to those people?
I say just take the first step. I think a lot of times, like when we are going after something, it seems so insurmountable, right? Like there's a huge mountain ahead of you, and you look at the top, you're like, I'm not sure how I can get there. Like it seems very daunting. But if you take one step, like you're one step closer to the top of that. And I think that, like, in my career, it's one of those things where, you don't think you can do something. So let's say I want to write a novel. Okay. Well, let's start with the title. What's the title of your novel? Like, you can start with something as simple as that, or give me a one-line description of what you think this novel is about. And as you begin to take those little steps, like you can begin to see it take shape. And so to me, it's like if you start with something small, something very that you can sort of bite off, it's very easily digestible, it helps you sort of then to that next step. It's like you really just have to sort of start. I know that sounds very cliche, but I really do believe that if you want to do something, it's really just about taking that first step.
A lot of time momentum builds
Exactly.
from just taking that first step. So it ends up making life easier after that if you can just get started. Yeah, I love the
Yeah.
advice.
Well, is that, and you get encouragement as well. Like, if you start with one little thing, you're like, okay, I like where this is going, and it sort of encourages you to go to the next step. So, yeah, it's really just about taking that first step in the journey.
Well, for those of us who want to follow your journey, maybe find out when the horror movie or the novel are coming out, and keep in touch with what's going on with you, where can we find you?
Oh, I mean, I'm on, Instagram. That's more just sort of my personal stuff. I love to travel, so it's mostly travel photos. But I also have a website, tkcreativemedia.com, which is where I have sort of, all the stuff that I'm currently doing.
Perfect. Well, I'll put the link for that in the description. People can check that out if they're interested. Maybe also keeping up on your IMDb for the movies.
Oh, see, I don't
Um,
even think about those things. Yes, IMDb is another.
I don't know if anything would be like a place to follow for novels, but that's, that I know about at least that resource. So I'm sure we're all excited to follow your journey. Everybody should be sure to check out those resources. And if you liked hearing Timothy's story, be sure to like and subscribe on this video because there's so many inspirational interviews still to come. But in the meantime, thank you so much, Timothy, for talking with me, for sharing your thoughts very candidly about going after the things that you want in life.
Mhm. Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
And to everybody who's watching this, go out there, get inspiration, get donuts.